This vision is a fundamental break from the economic theory that has failed America's middle class for decades now. It's called trickle-down economics.
President Biden pitched his economic agenda, Bidenomics, in a speech this week that was laced with misleading claims about his performance.
My predecessor enacted the latest iteration of the failed theory. Tax cuts for the wealthy. It wasn't paid for, and the estimated cost of his tax cut was $2 trillion. $2 trillion.
The Trump-era tax cuts did not benefit only the wealthy, and they didn't cost the government nearly as much as critics claimed. Last year, the Congressional Budget Office actually said the government is expected to collect more revenue over the next decade than it projected before the tax cuts were signed into law. Corporate tax revenues exceeded CBO's projections for 2018, the first year after the Trump tax cuts were in effect, and it blew well past expectations in 2022 after a dip during the pandemic. Part of the reason is that the cut to corporate taxes spurred waves of investment, growing the economy organically.
With this help, we created 13.4 million new jobs, more jobs in 2 years than any president has ever made in 4.
This is a highly misleading claim because almost all of those supposedly new jobs were just part of the economy's recovery from the pandemic. In 2020, the economy lost 9.4 million jobs because of COVID lockdowns. So more than 2/3 of the jobs Biden claims to have created were just old jobs returning after the pandemic. And the unemployment rate that Biden brags about is not quite as impressive as he claims. It's actually slightly higher than the unemployment rate in January 2020 under former President Trump, just before the pandemic began.
Wind and solar are already significantly cheaper than coal and oil. You're not going to see anybody building a new coal-fired plant in America. Not just because I'd like to pass a law to say that. It's too expensive.
One of the main reasons that renewable energy appears cheaper than traditional energy production is because the Biden administration has offered sweeping tax breaks and subsidies to green energy companies. The Biden administration has also pushed more restrictive regulations on coal and oil producers. That has made building wind and solar power plants more affordable on paper. But it's a result of the hundreds of billions of dollars the Biden administration has thrown into green energy through the infrastructure bill and through the Inflation Reduction Act.
Today, inflation is less than half of what it was a year ago. And that inflation caused by Russia and by the war in Ukraine and by what's going on.
Inflation still remains significantly higher than before Biden took office, even if it has fallen from last year. Before Biden took office, the inflation rate was 1.4%. Now it's above 4%, nearly quadruple what it was before his inauguration. And the war in Ukraine did not cause inflation. Gas prices were significantly higher before the Russian invasion of Ukraine even began than they were during the Trump administration, in part because of Biden's energy policies. Sarah Bedford for the Washington Examiner.